Hello, it's me, and I got this really neat little modification. I think it's called the Gray Mirror 4x4 Illusion Cube. I think the gray refers more to the name of the person who made this puzzle, but in any case, it's called an illusion cube because, well, it has the illusion of a 3x3 sitting in a base of another puzzle. In actuality, this is a 4x4 by the truest definition, 4 layers here, 4 layers here, and scrambles exactly like a 4x4. It has a lot of the look of the Cube Illusion by Tony Fisher, but it was kind of an interesting, it had an interesting look to it, and I always am intrigued by puzzles that when you scramble them, you're not sure what they're going to look like when you solve it, and when you solve it, it has a very unique shape to it. It's not just a cube, it's not just a platonic solid, it's actually more complex shape. So it piqued my interest, so I figured, hey, why not? I'll put it in as one of the unusual parts of the collection. But I was wondering if there's anything about this particular puzzle that has a certain kind of challenge to it, a certain kind of a parity to it. Being a 4x4, it wouldn't surprise me. So I thought what I would do is just kind of go through a scramble and a solve and see if I can come about some dilemmas. So this actually, it's a mirror cube in that it's solved by shape and not by color, but the color does play a role with it. So as you can see, it looks pretty much just like what a mirror cube would be, but solves in an interesting way. So what I'm going to do is, without really much preparation, let's just go ahead and scramble it. And my thinking is that we should be able to come about a solution to this just knowing 4x4 solves. So what I'm assuming that you know is you know how to solve a 4x4, and there are a variety of ways to solve a 4x4, such as layer by layer, by reduction, solving it by reduction to a 3x3, solving it by reduction to a 2x2. And I've shown all these different ways of solving a puzzle like this, and I can do any one of those, but I think to those who have this puzzle and are looking for some guidance, you probably don't have a whole lot of experience with a layer by layer solve. It doesn't quite fit with your usual way of doing it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to solve it by reduction, and by reduction I mean reducing it to a 3x3. We could solve it by reduction to a 2x2, and that has the advantages of avoiding parity of reduction. Because if you're reducing it from an even layer to an even layer, then there's really no parity of reduction to worry about. It's only when I solve it from an even to an odd that I may have solved it in a scrambled position that was impossible to scramble it into as an odd puzzle. But like I say, rather than get all bizarre about that and try to be clever about that, I'll just scramble it and solve it by a 3x3 reduction with all the parities intact, just because that's probably the way that most of you feel comfortable in scrambling a puzzle like this. Okay, so how are we doing? Let's move these over here. Okay, not bad. So looks pretty good. It's an interesting scramble because it looks the way a mirror puzzle would scramble, but what you can't really see necessarily is a cube illusion shape by the end of it. Let's see if I can do a little better job here. Okay, so you can see that this is 3D printed. Underneath here you can see the 4x4 base puzzle over here. Got this from the HK Now store, my go-to place for all my cubing needs. Okay, so what kind of approach am I going to do with this? Well, being a 4x4, we don't have defined placement for the centers. So because of that, I may have to discover where the centers go as I solve it. So what I would do is we're going to start off with reduction. Now this almost looks like a reduced center, only because these centers are of the same size. But because they're of different colors, I know they don't belong with each other. So the way I'm going to solve it is I'm going to find the center pieces that come out at me the most, and I can more easily identify that. So if I look over here, these two match. This is going to match with this. So I'm going to line this with this piece over here, bumping this out of the way. So this is just a 4x4 reduction. Is this, okay. I'm going to move this into here. That matches these two. And I'll put this together. Okay, so we have a center solved. Now I don't know the coordination of other centers associated with this. And like I say, I could just start solving this layer by layer. But again, that's not the usual way that most people do it. So what I'm going to do next is let's do another blue side. But let's find another one where it comes out at me the most, so I can start coordinating that. So there's this. Maybe this one lines up since it comes out at me the most. Of the blue centers, put it in. Does it match? Yeah, it matches. Okay. So in this way, it should make this part, which is more the grind part, go a little faster. So this belongs here too, but where's its complementary component? Probably this guy here. So I'm going to move him in, match it up. Now I knocked this one out here, so let's bump this out of the way, move this up, this is still here. Okay, I'm going to line this 2 by 1 with this. Now it moves really nice. This is a good moving puzzle, and bang. So now this is it. Okay, let's just do the final blue. It's easy to see. We'll line this up with it, bump it out of the way, bring this back, and now I can move these two in association with each other. Okay, I'm moving kind of fast through this because it's just center reduction. Okay, so to move this into here, I got to bump this out of the way here first. So move this in, bring this in its spot, move it in here. Okay, so these centers are solved. Now let's work on the yellow centers. Same thing, what comes out at me, these two are lined up. This one comes out at me the most. So I'm going to line this up with this guy here. Let's move them down so they're lined up. Bump it out of the way, move it back to keep this in. I want to move these two in conjunction with these two over here. So once again, I'm going to line it up, move this out so that I can take this out momentarily, line it up, move it in. Okay, now the final two sides. Basically, I don't really know where they go, but I'm going to take this, move it over to here, bump this out of the way, actually move this into here and down. So center reduction. I want to move this into this spot, so move it down. Again, this part is not the tutorial part. I hope you know how to reduce centers. Okay, this is in. Okay, so all the centers are reduced. What I would do next is just start reducing edges. This is already reduced, this is already reduced. It just was an accident by the scramble. So now I'm going to find other blues. Maybe this matches. If I move this down, I can see, nope, not quite. So I'm going to find another one that comes out much like that one. So maybe this one, move it in, nope. Okay, this lines up. All right, so the way this is going to work, this will come down into this space over here. I'm going to bump it out of the way, move this one in its space, and move it back. Okay, let's find the long one over here. Maybe it's this guy here. Does this move in? And yes. Whatever moves in, this one has to be out. So I'm going to move this down to match these up. Bump it out of the way. Move this one in its spot. Move it back in. And move it back up. Okay, so 4x4 solve. Now what I like about a 4x4 is just when you think you're getting tired of all this edge reduction, you're pretty much almost done. All the other higher order puzzles sometimes are very cumbersome. They seem to take a long time. Anyway, I should be able to find the other blue that's a similar size to this, and it's got to be this guy here. Just got to be. So we're going to move this up. It's a little snaggy, but it's not bad. Okay, which one isn't in? This one isn't. I'm going to move this up at the same level here. Bring this down to line up. Bump it out of the way. Move this in its spot. Bring it back and come back up. Okay. So now I'm left with, well, not too many more blues. This will come here. And does this match? It does. So bring it down. So right now I don't know how the centers are in relation to each other. I don't know how any of them are in relation to each other. I'm just doing edge reduction and then we'll have to sort it out. So I'm going to continue that process. Should be almost done. And I find myself with not being done yet. That doesn't match up to there. And this does match up to here. Okay, so which one is not in yet? All these blue ones are in. This one is not in yet. I'm down to the final three. So move this down to bring it in. And hopefully, maybe this will fix itself. And no, okay. Okay, so now I'm down to the last two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the two that have to be next to each other, move them across from each other. Same thing with these. This will go here, this will go here, this will go here. So move them across, then do R, F-I-U, R-I-F, and then pull it on back. And that'll swap those. Okay, so what we have is we have a completely reduced 4x4, but that's not where the challenge is. The challenge is now in assembling these. It's like all the puzzle pieces are put together, we just have to create the final shape. So let's find a center. This one is the easiest one to work with because it's coming out at us. And let's find edges that match up with it. So this matches up with it. Now I know that you're going to have solid blue edges on each side. So this is here. Now this might not coincide with the blue side. As a matter of fact, I suspect that it doesn't. So I'm just going to keep it here. This is also fine. Now does this coincide with any of these blue edges? And the answer is no. So we're just going to keep moving on. Okay, let's find another one that coincides with that shape. You, nope. You, nope. So I know these belong with this center. I just don't know what configuration yet. I'm just trying to find others. Okay, this belongs here as well, and it matches up with this center. So I've got one edge that matches up with two centers, so that's pretty good. So let's find the other edge that matches up with this center and this center. Well, it's not this one and it's not this one. So let's see what else it might be. Let's move some others up. How about you? Nope. So you kind of have to palpate it to see which ones might fit and which ones might not. No, not that one either. How about you? Nope. How about on this side? Yes, so this does. So I'm going to assume that it belongs here. So I'm going to move it across here, bring it up, double move it back. Okay, so this is good and this is good. So right now what it appears is that these centers are properly placed with these edges. Okay, so we have something of a cross, but we have no idea where they're supposed to be. We're going to figure it out when we start to put the edges in. So what edges line up? Well, these seem to line up really well with this side, so it's going to be none of these. Now we don't know if this is properly placed. So we're just going to find edges that seem to line up. Okay, we like this. It lines up nicely. It even lines up with this, but obviously I don't think it belongs here. I suspect it belongs here next to this. It's hard to say for sure. I can check it out by moving it into here and moving it up. Okay, so what this tells me is that this belongs here. This belongs here. So I'm going to flip-flop these two because I know that this piece also coincided with, this corner coincided with this edge. So this doesn't belong next to here, this does. So let's flip-flop these two with the adjacent edge swap to our, well, you know what? We could do that, or we could just move this down, bring it here. Now I can move it up, but let's get this out of the way here. Move this up, double turn, move this down. Okay, so now we know that this is fine, and I can see which edges correlate with that. Now, I lost this edge, but I know this is correct. So where did that other edge go? Was it you? No. Maybe it was you. Let me see. Yeah, it was you. Okay. So here's what this means to me. This correlates with this. This correlates with this. What that tells me is that this center belongs here. So I'm going to swap these two centers. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take this 1 by 2 by 1 block over here. I'm going to do a split in the middle here, like that, 2R, double turn, and then I'm going to move it back with a 2R. Now, without moving it, I'm going to do the same thing, but a 2L, double turn, and then 2L. Why do I like that? Well, because it swapped that, and it did not take out the edges that I reduced. So it's a pretty simple way of swapping that. So now what we see is that this is in, and this is in, and we like this corner over here as well, because this corner matches with these two. We like this corner here too, so we're assembling this side. So this is all okay, which means this has to be in the right place as well. So this center is well placed, this center is well placed. We have no idea about these two. We'll have to discover that. So let's go ahead and roll in some corners. It's going to be pretty big. This is a pretty big one here. And nope, it's not that one. So another pretty big one. How about this one here? Boy, sometimes this thing catches like crazy. And aha! So this is good. Now we need one more edge, corner rather. Let's try this one here. Yeah, don't try to speed through this. It will snag, it will push back. And how about you? Okay, so we have our first side, and we did that just by correlating the corners. Now, we correlated the centers here, so we know this matches and we know this matches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to see just how well this, this works. We know these two are properly placed. I see this edge lines up with this center. I can move this down and see that doesn't belong there. This is properly placed here, but it doesn't really belong here. So I'm going to move this to this side by doing an opposite edge swap. To R, to U, to R, to U, to R, to U. Okay, so this is placed here. This center here is supposed to be offset, so that's okay. Now let's find the other one that matches. This seems to match, and if I pull it down here, it does not match with this, which means this is supposed to probably be on the top. All right, how about this? Well, let's see. Not there. Not there, so it's not this one. How about you? Nope, not there. Okay, this matches. Does it match to here too? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to take this, do the algorithm to put it here. U, R, UI, RI, UI, FI, U, F. Okay, so we're assembling our second layer, our middle layer. That's all fine. And now we need to see which edge comes into here, which edge comes into here. So this is going to be another blue edge, and that's properly placed here. So I'm going to assume that this is going to come down to here. Turn, turn. 4x4, oh actually this is 3x3 algorithms. Now, this I know belongs here because it's lined up with this bottom here. It's lined up with this bottom here. This one is not correct because it's not lined up, so we can't let that fool us. So I'm thinking it's this guy, and this lines up nicely. So I'm going to flip-flop these two to R to U, to R to U, to R to U. Now I suspect this isn't really the challenge. So now we have a nice portion of the blue second layer. Now we just have to find the yellow edge that goes between these two. Is it this one? No. This one? No. This one? Maybe, but this lines up with the top. So it's not this one. Must be one of these. Must be this guy here. Okay, so this is just a matter of palpating it. So now this is all lined up. Okay, so we're cruising. Maybe it's not so hard. Middle layer is done. All these are lined up. Now I do the top layer. For the top layer, we look to see if we can rotate these. This is rotated correctly over here. This is rotated incorrectly because it's not going to line up with this. So this is good, this is wrong, this is right, and this is right. So we basically have a kind of parity where we have one edge that's rotated wrong. So this is a 4x4 parity. So in order to rotate this up, we're going to do the Red Bull algorithm. To R, to B, to U, L, to up, RI, to up, R, to up, to F, R, to F, Li, to B, to R. What that did is it rotated this up. So the Red Bull algorithm is a way to flip one edge. So I know I moved fast on that, but again, it's not really a 4x4 tutorial. It's just how to use the known 4x4 techniques for this kind of puzzle. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to SUNY this because this is fine. By doing a SUNY, I'm going to do that until this is rotated to here. So it's going to be RU, RIU, R, to U, RI. Not there yet. Do it again. All right, okay, good. How are we doing here? This is lined up, and this is lined up. All right, now the final portion of this is getting our corners in. So what's the quickest way to do this? Well, I know this corner belongs here. I'm not sure about these yet, but I'm going to do my corner rotation. This will stay where it's at. This will rotate until I get this to here. So at least I know it's where it needs to be. U-R, U-I-L-I, U-R-I, U-I-L. Not there yet, so we do it again. Again, this is 4x4 solving technique, and I think we may be almost there. So now this is where it should be. We don't know about the rest of these yet, but this doesn't seem like it's where it needs to be. So with this over here, because this won't turn around, this will stay stationary. This will stay where it's at. These will all rotate around with this algorithm: U-R, U-I-L-I, U-R-I, U-I-L. So you guessed it. This is just how to move these corners around. Is this correct? Well, the way to tell is we can start putting it in by doing R-I-D-I-R-D. So let me see if this is where it needs to be. R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. Okay, we like that. Let's move this into here, roll this where it needs to be. R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. This is where it needs to be. Now, one more over here. R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. Okay, now this is where it needs to be. So we have a little bit of a problem here, because this puzzle, for all intents and purposes, looks like it's solved, except one corner is twisted. One corner. And that's not supposed to happen. Chances are, to those who have this puzzle, this is the problem that you're dealing with. The one twisted corner. So here's where we left off, and we find ourselves nearly solved, but with one piece left over, and that's the corner piece that's twisted, that's turned. So the centers seem to all line up with the edges, and for all intents and purposes with each other, and yet we have one turned corner. So the question is, how did this happen, and how do we get out of this? And it's important to understand, well, the law of cubes. I could get a corner that's rotated as long as I have another corner that's rotated. You really can't have one corner rotated, because when you're doing R-I-D-I-R-D to rotate this, doing it 3 times will set the base back to its, the first layer back to its original configuration. So you really need to have 2 corners that are out, because to do it 3 times will put this back in, but this will still be out. So you need to put this in by doing R-I-D-I-R-D maybe 2 times, but something else has to be out to do it that 3rd time as you move it into position. So the question is, where does this come from? You can't have one corner that's rotated. So we can think about it and say, well, maybe there's another corner that's also rotated, if there's any equivalency of rotation. So there's equivalencies of translation, where 2 edges that look exactly alike can be swapped for each other, which might put another edge or corner out. Or there's another corner that has rotational equivalence, which means it can rotate in any direction. But you can see that all the corners seem to be the same, but all the corners seem to have specificity with rotation, including this one. An example of that is this guy over here. So this is a morphinx. It's a 4x4 morphinx puzzle, and this is the last layer over here, another layer here and here. So it's a 4-layer puzzle. It's a 4x4 mod, but you can see, just like with this has one corner that appears to be rotated. So maybe it's a situation like that. But in this case, the reason why this is rotated is because this is also rotated. It doesn't look like it's rotated, and that's because it has rotational equivalence. So to get out of something like this, so this could be rotated by 120 degrees, and you wouldn't notice any difference. The only way you'd notice a difference is if this is out. So the way that we'd handle this is we would simply rotate this by going R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D, and it's in. And then I go to one of my equivalent, rotational equivalence pieces, let's say this one, and then I just keep rotating this around, R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D. Still not in, but this seems to be fine. Again, R-I-D-I-R-D, R-I-D-I-R-D, and then it's back. So in this particular case, rotational equivalence is what drove this to be turned, because you can turn these around any way that you want. In this case, I can't do that because let's say I turn this around until it gets to a point where this is in. Well, that's going to take one of these guys out. As we, I believe as we saw, initially one of these are in. So you can do Ri, Di, R, D, Ri, Di, R, D, Ri, Di, R, D, Ri, Di, R, D. So this is in, but if I turn another corner piece in to try to get the bottom back, then this is going to be rotated. Any one of them can be rotated. So Ri, Di, R, D, Ri, Di, R, D. So now the bottom is back, but now this is rotated. So when you get this situation, what you want to do is you want to take the one that's rotated out and make it one of these cubes. In this case, it's my yellow one, but one that has that cube illusion portion of it. All right. So move it to this one by move it to the yellow. Let's move the blue one in. Okay, then I'm going to move the yellow one in place and do it again until this is all in. The bottom is all in, just like we did when we started, and it's back. Okay, so it's not the same as this. There must be something else that's going on. So what else might be happening? Can you think about what it is? Kind of pause the video and see if you can figure it out. But what it comes down to is this. It comes down to the fact that there is some kind of equivalence and something has been moved around. Now I'll tell you that you don't get any parities with the corners. So the corner is supposed to go where it's supposed to go. Something else was flipped. And in this case, the situation was not the edges, which are wrong, but it's not really its fault. The situation are the centers. Because you wouldn't know if this should be here, or this should be here, or this should be here. You'll just simply adapt these around. But the problem is that the corner won't adapt around to it. The corner will still have a very specific place that it's supposed to be, and the centers are supposed to line up with where that corner is supposed to go. But we didn't put the corners in until the last. So because we didn't do that, it has the authority to dictate where the centers are supposed to be, but we didn't consult with it when we were putting the centers where where we thought they should go. So the situation that this actually is more like a situation like this. So this is the equivalent. So as you can see here, this is the same, this is the same. Oop. This and this is the same, but once you get to here, you can see where the actual parity comes from. The actual parity comes from the fact that these centers are incorrect, just like these centers are incorrect. So this edge is correct. This edge is where it needs to be, but all the other edges are not. Now, this edge is where it's supposed to be, but the centers are wrong. You have to flip the centers. Now, so in order to get this back, we have to get this. We have to get the centers back. To do that, I know this belongs here, this belongs here, and this belongs here. I can easily see that. So what I would do is I would flip-flop these. So I'll move this up with the splitting of the R, middle R, do 2U, and I'll go Ri. Then I'll do the same thing with the L, up, 2U, and L. Okay, so that put the center where it's supposed to be. Now it took this and this, it flip-flopped these two edges. But what I also need to do is flip these guys over here. Nope, rather I need to flip these guys over here, I believe, yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing holding it here, but I'm just going to take these edges that I swapped and do it again with these in this configuration, and it'll swap that back. So up, double turn and down, then from the left, up, double turn and down. It'll keep the edges where they're supposed to be, and then it'll just simply move things back. Okay, so this is all back, and then you can see it's just a matter of the rotation has gone from this corner to these edges. And then it's a matter of getting these edges back in as best you can. And the way that you can do that is to decide where things are going to go. So if I move this to here, just like this, and I do an edge swap, this will be in exactly where it needs to be. So I'm going to hold this over here and do an adjacent edge swap. And then after I do that, this will be here and this will be here. I'm going to swap these edges. So I'm going to go 2R, U, 2R, U, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2R, U, 2R, UI, 2R. Puts that in. Now what I need to do is I need to swap these two edges. So I'm going to move this up. And then across here, 2RU, 2RU, 2R, 2U, 2R, 2U, 2RU, 2R, UI, 2R, I move this back down, move this back down here, bring it up, and then that puts it back in. So we're going to do something very similar with this. Now the question is, what center goes where? Well, this is the one that's poking out at me. So let's find the center that's the most out. So what lines up with this piece over here? Well, is it this? I'll just move this down and I can see there's a little bit of a cleft here. So nope, it's not that one. Which means it's got to be this one. So if I move this to here, this is in the same plane. So what needs to happen is this needs to go here. If I move this portion down here, this lines up over here. So this needs to go here, this needs to go here, and then this needs to go here. So if I line this up, I can see this corner lines up to here. So basically, that's where these centers need to go. Okay, I just rotated this with a slightly different perspective, but anyway, so seeing what needs to go where, this center piece needs to go here, and this needs to go here. So basically, we're going to flip-flop. Yeah, flip-flop these two, and then flip-flop these two. So we're going to do it the same way that we did here. Yeah, this needs to go up here, and this is flush over to here. So this needs to go here. Okay, so let's flip-flop these two first to get this where it needs to be. So R to U, RI, LI to U, and L. Okay, now we see these were taken out, so we're going to move these like so with a UI and a D. That'll get these two back, and now we're going to flip-flop these centers. R to U, RI, LI to U, L, and let's flip these back. Okay, so what you can see is these are all fine, and now these centers are now lined up with where they're supposed to be with their edge. Now it's just a matter of getting these centers are lined up with where they're supposed to be with their corners. Now we just see if we can get these edges back. So I move this to here. This needs to flip to over to here. So I'm going to put it in a position where this is going to do an adjacent edge swap. An adjacent edge swap. So to R, U, to R, U, to R, to U, to R, to U, to R, U, to R, UI, to R. As you can see, this likes where it is. It did create misplacement over here, but that's okay. I want to flip these. So let's keep in this configuration to keep these lined up so they can flip back. So I'm going to move this up with an LI and then a UI, and then let's flip these back, and then we'll reconstruct it back to where it was. To R, U, to R, U, to R, to U, to R, to U, to R, U, to R, UI, to R. All should be right. So now we're just bring this back across with a U and an L, and then we simply move this back down and done. So there it is. It's been rotated back. So this is a great addition to the collection because it uncovers more of the versatility of the solved dilemmas of a 4x4, and that unlike this piece where the corner seeming parity was due to rotational equivalence of another one of the corners, this is not due to that, but it's due to translational seeming equivalence of the centers where you misplace the centers. Bear in mind, there are no parities of corners because you don't reduce corners. Corners are among the more solid members of your cube team, so to speak. It's just the fact that the rotation of the corner was more set in stone as to this proper solve configuration where the centers had to be rotated in conjunction with that. In any case, there you have it. Hope that helped. Another useful addition to the 4x4 solving dilemma of parity. Thanks for watching.